So maybe we could find in the Indian subcontinent, not on the border of Burma, descendants of the Zavula, just as we had found descendants of the Naphtalites in Central Asia. In the course of our research, we repeatedly came across a little-known group in India that could not be easily related to other Jews. So we made our way to Bombay in search of Zebulon. Bombay is home to 8 million Hindus and 1 million Muslims. Here we found a community numbering about 5,000 that by all accounts should have assimilated into the dominant culture long ago. And though they do not call themselves by any particular tribal name, significantly, like the lost tribes and unlike other Jews, they call themselves the children of Israel, not Judah.
I am not Yehudi, I am Bene Israel. Yehudis, those Jews who migrated to India from Baghdad. My family is Bene Israel.
"300 years ago, a Jewish merchant traveling through the coastal region was stunned to see Indian peasants chanting Jewish prayers. Fascinated, he stopped to inquire as to how they knew these prayers, and was shocked when they replied that they were Israelites who had lived in India from ancient times. Skeptical of these claims, the merchant visited a village and presented the Bene Israel with an assortment of fish to be made into a meal, some kosher, some not. When he saw that the villagers knew which fish were kosher, he was convinced that they were an Israelite community, and he helped them return to Judaism. Unique to the Bene Israel community is the Melida ceremony, which is a kind of offering of rice, scented flowers, and fruit. Though they had forgotten the reasons behind some of their practices, the Bene Israel had clung to them as something precious to be passed through the generations.
They were observing certain rules and regulations of Judaism. And when they got an opportunity of being told as to what the meaning was of that particular thing, they were only too happy. Why should they lose? And nobody forced us. If they had said, no, you must become Hindus or you must become Mohammedans, but nobody ever forced us because we were such a minority in the whole population of India. Nobody worried about us.
But what if they were not always a tiny minority? What if the mysterious rulers of northern India in the 5th and 6th centuries were indeed the lost tribe of Zebulon?
The Bene Israel community's own historian, his name was Chaim Kar, wrote a book about the Bene Israel at the turn of the 20th century. He believed that they are descendants of the lost tribes. He thought the tribes were scattered to the ends of the earth, and some made their way to India. He talks about various practices they have, and compares them to the rituals of the Jerusalem temple, for example, the Melida ceremony. He argues that in an earlier period, they even had sacrifices like those in the temple. But these are all speculations. There is no documentation or proof.
After nearly 3 millennia, there may not be proof, but there is a tantalizing hint. The holiest site for the Bnei Israel of India is a rock outcrop 100 kilometers south of Bombay. Here we learned that the most revered figure for the Bene Israel is not King David or Abraham or even Moses. It is the prophet Elijah.
The Jews in India believe that the prophet Elijah went to heavens from this place. The mark of his chariot can be seen on the stone rock that we are standing on. The hooves can be seen laid down there, and they said that his chariot slipped here, and on the top of the mountains over there you can see another sign of the hooves of his horses.
Using the rock as a kind of altar, the Bnei Israel make an offering of coconut on the mark of Elijah's chariot. This veneration of Elijah is suggestive, since Elijah was the prophet of the Israelite tribes that came to be lost. But how would they have gotten here? The community has its own myth of origin.
2,000 years ago, a ship of Israelis got caught in a storm, and the ship was wrecked on the coast of Bombay. And only 7 couples survived that particular shipwreck. And the 7 couples landed at a place known as Navgaon. And we are supposed to be the offshoot of those 7 couples.
It makes more sense that those Israelites came not directly from Israel, but from the north. That is, the area of the Silk Route. Israelites of the tribes exiled by the Assyrians became involved in the silk trade, trading along one of the branches of the ancient route that became known as the Silk Route. I believe that these Israelites got as far as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Kashmir. From there, they got to where the Persian Gulf meets the Indian Ocean, and then, in the course of their trade, they may have sailed along the Indian coast.
Whichever way they got here, the Bnei Israel can still point to the graves where the survivors of the shipwreck are said to be buried. It now seems that we can draw a plausible link between the Bnei Israel and seafarers coming from the north. But does this prove that the ancient rulers of northern India had any connection whatsoever to the lost tribe of Zebulun?
We have coins that say Javula on them. We have recorded history of their capital city called Baruch, which in Hebrew means blessed. We know that the title of their king was Mir HaGola, which in Hebrew means light of the exile. And we know the name of the king, their most famous king, was Torah Mana, which in Hebrew or Hindi means, or seems to mean, belief in the Torah, faith in the Torah, faith in the books of Moses. So unless these were all coincidental, we could speculate that the Zavula of India and Pakistan were really the lost tribe of Zebulun.
As if responding to an ancient call, many of the Bnei Israel of Bombay have returned to their ancestral home in Israel. They gravitate towards Elijah's cave and continue to demonstrate their reverence for the biblical prophet. Elijah's cave is in the old territory of Zebulun.
Standing in this cave, I must confess that I felt that I was in the twilight zone, because I was among people who were acting out a script that was written almost 3,000 years ago. And they seemed to be fixated on the prophet that warned the tribes of their exiles and promised them redemption in the end of days.